everyone, and welcome to the Business Takeaway, a videocast series where we interview professionals in the advertising, marketing, and public relations industry. I'm your host, Sarah Rosenberg. With me today, I have Jennifer Pellegrini, brand manager at Illumina. It's great to be talking with you, Jen.
You as well.
So I'd like to start off by asking you, what got you interested in this field?
Sure. So growing up, I always thought I would do something in business. I was always very analytical and ambitious, but there was also a part of me that was really creative and I loved to write. And I just thought maybe those passions would be for side projects or for hobbies. So I entered university as a business major and wound up in a communications course that gave me a bit more exposure to the advertising industry. And I had kind of a aha moment thinking I could actually marry, my business brain and my creative spirit together in one field.
That's awesome. Could you talk a little bit more about your education, where you went to college, and your bachelor's degree, and if you have your master's degree?
Yeah, so I went to San Diego State University. I received a bachelor's degree in journalism and media studies with an emphasis in advertising and a minor in psychology. And then I was fortunate enough recently to go back to school to receive a mini MBA specific to brand management, thanks to a scholarship from my current employer, Illumina.
Awesome. What has your career path been since college? Yeah.
It's been a journey. I would say I feel like I've hit kind of every facet over the past 12 years. When I graduated, I started as an assistant media buyer. And I knew at graduation that maybe media buying wasn't exactly my passion, but I felt like it was important to have that experience. So I was at Havas, which is a global advertising and communications agency, for 2 years. And there I really realized that I liked the work better when it involved clients. So I transitioned to a full service creative advertising agency. And there I started as an account coordinator and worked my way up from coordinator to manager and ultimately a supervisor over the course of my 7 years there. After spending so much time in an agency environment, I felt like I wanted to get kind of a more well-rounded background, and I wanted to go in-house and focus on one brand. And that led me to Sharp Healthcare, which is San Diego's largest healthcare provider. And I spent another couple years there kind of in an advertising strategy role before ultimately transitioning to become in this global brand management role for Illumina, which is a biotech genomics company.
So in your current job with Illumina, could you describe a typical workday or week?
I think everybody will tell you the same thing. There's never, a typical standard day, but I think as the title implies, a brand manager really manages the brand. And I think some people think, a brand is just a logo or the colors, but it's so much more than that. So brand is really just this set of associations and moments and experiences that people have with the company that help them choose one product over another. And those associations really need to be nurtured and managed. And so a brand manager acts as a brand guardian. We make sure there's kind of a consistency across all company communications. And we're responsible for making sure that everywhere Illumina shows up, it's consistent and we're providing a unique and special experience. So day to day, I'm focused heavily on strategy, making sure, again, that there's this consistency throughout all of our communications, setting style guides, making sure our verbal identity, our visual identity are all laddering up to what our overall company mission is.
Good. What kind of education or training and background does your job require?
I think brand management is a bit more niche in terms of a discipline, but the great thing about, I think, marketing and advertising and PR is that you can really enter it from so many different angles and avenues. So I'd say, it starts with the bachelor's degree in a related field. And then I feel like it's all about what industry you want to go to and kind of seeking out those opportunities to learn more about those specific industries. So start with kind of your basic, bachelor's degree, and then find where your passions are and seek out opportunities to learn more about those specific elements.
Awesome. That's great advice. What skills have you acquired that would help you communicate a client's message?
I think the most important thing is that you have to have a strategy in place. And a lot of that comes down to who you're talking to. So you can't communicate a client's message if you don't know who you're communicating to. So I've learned over the years, and especially at the agency where we had a variety of clients, that you have to really dig into data and audience insights to know who you're talking to and what sort of messages are going to resonate with those certain groups. I think kind of gone are the days of being able to have one message and thinking that that's going to, meet all of the different needs. And I've learned that sometimes clients don't even have that information. I think it's on the onus of the marketer to sometimes have to push back and say, I can't come to you with a proper communication strategy if we don't even know who we're talking to. So let's get really granular. Let's find out who your target audience is. And then we can say, what's the best way to speak with them and reach them.
Yeah. What soft and hard skills are essential to your position?
I think relationships are huge in the advertising kind of marketing world in general. And I think as a brand manager, that carries over. I think successful brand managers are those who are really solution oriented and who are strategic. You really have to be able to kind of think about a strategy and then be able to validate that and be able to come to the table and say, I feel strongly that this is a position we should take and here's why. So being solution oriented, being relationship oriented, I think some people take for granted, how powerful it is when you can give a good presentation. I've seen PowerPoints that are 50 slides long and I don't really know what the point is. So it's like you have to be able to distill information down and be concise and clear when you're making a point. And those are skills that I think sometimes it takes time to just learn on the job and trial and error and really learn what your own style is in communicating.
Definitely. What would you say, which brand related work are you the most proud of and why?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like between the agencies that I've been at, I've worked with a variety of clients, and some of them have been health and beauty and fitness and real estate development. But I think some of the work that I did at Sharp Healthcare at the height of the pandemic is special to me. COVID had just hit, and there was a lot of fear in people not wanting to come to the hospitals, not wanting to contract COVID, just misunderstanding. And so we launched a campaign called Safe to Get Care. And at the end of the day, that campaign was not about, increasing sales numbers or year over year revenue. It was really about saving lives and telling people, if you have a condition, you shouldn't put it off. You still need to come in and it's safe to get care here. And I felt like that aligned with our brand in our whole stance of wanting to provide care for the community. But it was also in a time where the world was in a global pandemic and everything was unknown. So we just all rallied together and said, let's make sure we're doing what's right and not focus so much on the business of things.
Yeah, that's a great message for sure.
Yeah.
How do you stay updated on the latest tools and trends?
I think it's really important to be involved in professional organizations outside of work. So besides your 9 to 5, I think I always encourage people to get involved with their local ad club, AIGA, PR club, because those relationships that you build are so critical to continuing to have exposure to what's new and what's happening in trends. And a lot of times those professional organizations will put on workshops. I've learned a ton about, digital marketing and design and things that I might not touch every day just by being involved in those sort of extracurricular professional groups.
For sure. That sounds great. What would you encourage early and career professionals to do?
I think that one of the most important things is to find kind of a mentor. When I started out, I was fortunate enough to have a former professor act as a mentor and really help me make some early career decisions about where I wanted to go and how long I should stay and what sort of relationships I should seek. And it really helped, I think, in the early days of just trying to navigate having so many choices. And then later, when I entered in the advertising industry and our focus was mostly real estate, I sought out another mentor, a woman who was in a position that I wanted to be in, a leadership position, and said, what choices were you making? What things were you doing? And allowing kind of their hindsight to be my foresight. And so I think when you're so early in your career, it's nice to have perspective from people who have been there and who have done it. And then later, I was able to become a mentor through the university systems here in San Diego. And it connected professionals who were in role with juniors and seniors, just so they could get a taste of what real life, real on the job experiences are. And I would say that was invaluable. I learned as well as my mentee. And so I think that those programs are available, and I'd say take advantage of them as much as you can, because that having someone to go to and kind of be a sounding board is so helpful in the beginning.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice. And I loved what you said about letting their hindsight be your foresight. I think that's just great. What current issues or trends in the field should people know about and be aware of?
Right now, I think data and privacy is a big one. As much as I talked about like knowing your audience and tailoring your targeting, you have to be mindful and ensure that you're doing that ethically. There's a lot that's changing all the time, and what's going on with Apple and Google and how we're tracking cookies. And, a lot of times agencies or big companies have a legal department that's advising on those sort of things. But it's always good to have a baseline understanding so that when you're presenting ideas and strategies, that they're already kind of aligned with what's going to be acceptable and acting ethically, and making sure that you're not kind of abusing all the data that we all have available to us now. So I think that's only going to continue to grow as we get further and further into a digital realm, and where so much of the marketing and advertising is in a digital space. It's just being aware of making sure that we're staying in the green zone.
For sure. What advice would you give for people wanting to enter this industry?
And besides, finding that mentor, I think there's also a lot of pressure in the very beginning to feel like you know it all, to kind of, validate that you deserve a certain position, or, that you earned it. And I think, step away from having to have this mentality of I'm a know-it-all and become a learn-it-all. I've learned that leadership CEOs, they don't want you to blindly nod and say you understand something when you don't. The expectation is not that you know everything, but I think there is an expectation that you'll ask questions to really understand it. There's a lot to be said about I'm a go-getter, I can, figure it out. But if you're in a conversation and you're starting out and, somebody asks you to do something and then you go back to your desk and you spin on it for 8 hours, that's not efficient. It'd be better to ask those questions up front. And I think it shows more about, your work ethic and what you want to accomplish if you take the time to actually learn, because those skills usually come back around. I knew that media buying was not where I was going to take my career, but I'm so glad that I tried to learn that skill, because it came in so handy when I was talking to media directors or overseeing media plans in the agency position, in the Sharp position, and even now at Illumina. Just to have that understanding is so helpful. So I'd say actually take the time to learn what you're being taught, versus just feeling like you have to say, I know that, when you don't really.
Right. That is great advice, and I'll definitely take that to heart in my own career. Lastly, is there anything you'd like to add on about your journey in the field, or any more advice you may have?
I'd say stay open. I mean, in advertising and marketing, you just never know where you're going to end up. I never thought that I would spend so much time in kind of that real estate community development phase. I didn't know that I'd be in healthcare, and I certainly didn't know that I'd be in biotech. Like I said, my degree is not in science, it's not in STEM. And so while that has always been of interest, I didn't know that that's where, my career would lead me. And I think, you have this expectation that your career success is going to be, a ladder, and you're just going to work your way up. But really, sometimes you have to sidestep in order to take that bigger step. Sometimes you even have to step back. When I left the agency, I was in a supervisor level position, and then I took on a strategy position. And I felt like I kind of struggled with that decision. I said, is this the right move? but I knew that I needed to get that in-house brand experience in order to then do what I wanted to do next. So I think you have to kind of let go of this idea of like titles and seniority and just stay open to kind of where your journey leads and go where you're interested, even if it's something that you didn't think you would love. Because I'm here now and I'm happier than ever that I've landed where I have, and I've really kind of tried to take that to heart. And you never know what's going to happen, and form those relationships and stay open to what opportunities come your way.
Yeah, for sure. I love that advice. Thank you so much. And then that concludes the interview. So thank you so much for your time, Jen. It was great to talk to you and learn a little bit more about the industry.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Mhm. Once again, I'm Sarah Rosenberg, and this was Jennifer Pellegrini on the Business Takeaway. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with our videos. And please feel free to reach out about any questions you may have. Thank you so much.